The Toronto Maple Leafs are consistent. They routinely let us down when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs, but the payoff is we get a press conference at the end of the season. Now, for a number of years, those press conferences were really boring, but the last couple of years, they've really spiced them up. Last year, Kyle Dubas gave a press conference where he talked about maybe not wanting to do this anymore. And then a couple days later, Brendan Shanahan gave his own press conference where he talked about listening to Kyle Dubas while driving home on the Gardiner Expressway. This is a real thing, by the way. Stop texting me in the middle of my thing! Anyway, he was on the Gardiner Expressway, and Brendan Shanahan thought, you know what? I'm gonna fire Kyle. And then he did, and he hired Brad Treliving. And then the next season continued. And then they lost the Game 7 in Boston. No, I am not talking about the press conference from after the 2013 season. No, I am not talking about the press conference from after the end of the 2018 season. No, I am not talking about the end of the press conference from the 2019 season. I am talking about the end of the season press conference from 2024 because that happened for a fourth time in 11 years this season. But what spiced this up is a new character. A very powerful new character. You see, last year, a new character was introduced. Brad Treliving. But Brad has a boss. His name is Brendan Shanahan. Brendan Shanahan has been the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs for over a decade, but now Brendan has a boss, a public-facing boss. His name is Keith Pelley, who is the new CEO of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Okay, obviously I reacted to this press conference yesterday on the podcast, but now there's been some articles written about it, Chris Johnston in The Athletic notably, and I've had 24 hours to think about it. Let me tell you about some of my observations here now that I've slept on it. Keith Pelley used to work for Bell, used to work for Rogers, you know all that. He went to the European Golf Tour, you know about all that. He was recently hired for MLSE. Maybe we were a little naive in thinking that he would fire Brendan Shanahan right away or Shanahan would resign because, as Keith Pelley said many times, he's only been here 4 weeks.
I've been here 4 weeks. I can only comment, like I said, on the first 4 weeks. What I saw in my 4 weeks, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, I can only evaluate what I have seen in the first 4 weeks.
Dude, brutal. Listen, a lot of you wanted Sheldon Keefe gone last year. He's gone now, but a lot of you wanted him gone last year. A lot of you wanted the Leafs to blow up the core four, trade at least one of those guys last year. Now, it definitely sounds like they're going to try to do that, and we'll get to that a little later in this video, but a lot of you wanted it last year. A big reason why there wasn't a coaching change and there wasn't a change to the core four, like Mitch Marner had no trade protection. None last year. It kicked in July 1st, and the reason he now has a full no-move clause is they didn't move him. A big reason why those moves were not made last year is a GM was fired with like 5 weeks of runway leading into the 2023 NHL draft. And that was a decision made by Brendan Shanahan. Now this year, Brendan Shanahan's boss is basically copying to the exact same thing that Brendan Shanahan did a year ago. He prefaced a lot with, well, I just got here. Well, I just got here. Well, there's not that much time. There's not that much time. I haven't had enough time. And you know what? Fine. You know what? In Keith Pelley's defense, yeah, he's only been here a month. But legit question, how does MLSE routinely find themselves, how have they found themselves in this position in back-to-back years where there is a very legitimate case to have a big swath of decisions made, a big swath of changes made, but, you know what? There's just not enough time. It's particularly frustrating when you hear Brendan Shanahan say this.
However, the reality of the situation is the ultimate responsibility is on me. The accountability is on me. Our playoff results have not been good enough. That's on me.
Now, in fairness to Brendan Shanahan, he's right. It is on him, man. Think of the Matthews and Marner era and all that. There have been a number of characters who have come and gone, and there's a very small handful of people, decision makers who are not on the team, like not on the actual roster, who have been here the entire time. Think about it. We've talked about Mike Babcock. We have talked about Lou Lamoriello. We have talked about Kyle Dubas. We have talked about a swath of assistant coaches on the power play and on the penalty kill, and they have gone on to other teams in the league. Spencer Carberry is with the Washington Capitals. DJ Smith was with the Ottawa Senators for a long time. Jim Hiller is the head coach of the LA Kings right now. He was one of Babcock's assistants. Oh my God, I forgot about Greg Cronin. He's a former... So many guys have come and gone and moved on to different gigs. The only guy who has been here every year, every single year of this rebuild, his tenure with the Leafs began with the draft where he got William Nylander in the top 10 in 2014 is Brendan Shanahan. Listen, the Leafs' mediocrity when it comes to the playoffs, mediocrity would be making it halfway every year. The Carolina Hurricanes in recent years have been mediocre in the playoffs. They've won some series, they've lost a lot of series, they haven't gotten very far. The Leafs have been utterly inept, and it has cost a lot of people their job. Mike Babcock, Lou Lamoriello's in a little bit of a different situation. Kyle Dubas and the core four, they're going to move on from the core four, which felt impossible. And when they do that, it means that the only person who hasn't paid for the Leafs' complete ineptitude in the playoffs over the last almost decade, is Brendan Shanahan. Now look, we're heading into the offseason now. Then they're going to play a bunch of games, and then we're going to come up to next year. We're going to come up to this time next year. Hopefully, we're having an entirely different conversation. Hopefully, we're talking about how good the Leafs look in the second round of the playoffs and going forward. That's hopefully what we're talking about, and that will help change the narrative. But if we arrive at that point and the Leafs are in the exact same position, or worse, which is also a possibility, the dude has to go. Like, it's not going to be a witch hunt. They've made their decision to keep the guy. Not what I would have done, whatever. They're keeping the guy. Fine. Keeping the guy. But that's it. That's it. Like, very little of this, I feel like, goes on Brad Treliving's shoulders. If we're talking about, I haven't had enough time, well, he's only had 1 year where he barely had any run-up to his first offseason with the Leafs. Like, way to put a guy in a position to succeed. Keith Pelley, like he mentioned, only got here 4 weeks ago. The core four will have changed. The coach will have changed. Dude, it's Shanny. He was the dude who, out of these three, didn't sound the best. Like, he sounded kind of downtrodden. And there's reason for that. He's been here for 10 years. Keith Pelley has not been here for 10 years, and he sounded a different kind of downtrodden. He sounded downright unhappy. I thought it was actually a pretty good first press conference for Keith Pelley because he knew someone spoke to him or he picked it up very quickly in his 4 weeks back here. Leaf fans do not want to hear it anymore. Like, there's not even really a debate anymore. Like, there's debate about, like, they should do this specifically and that. People are pretty content to say, yeah, it's about time for a big change. Not necessarily blowing it up. I don't think people are interested in a rebuild just yet. They want a big change to this team on the ice and off that will help them win. And I really liked when Keith Pelley talked about winning being the thing that Leaf fans want the most.
In the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've gotten a full glimpse of the power of Leaf Nation. I understand the passion, the commitment of the fans, and it quickly reminded me of going to my very first game in Liverpool. And hearing that song, You'll Never Walk Alone. The fans here not only deserve, but demand a championship. And there's no complacency. We're not here to sell jerseys. We're here to win.
I don't know why that quote, I loved it so much, and I thought it was such a smart message to deliver to fans. Fans, apart from being upset with the Leafs' ineptitude in the playoffs and not being content with watching them lose all the time, a lot of fans feel taken advantage of. Like, dude, if you go and talk to any fan in Maple Leaf Square during the playoff games or after regular season games, Fan First Network picks up a lot of this frustration after games. Fans, like, the first thing they mention after a Leaf loss is money. It's almost always money. They either talk about the stars who make a lot of money, or they talk about, dude, these tickets cost me $200. Dude, I spent like $30 on 2 beers. They feel taken advantage of. They don't feel like they're getting their money's worth. And yes, MLSE makes a lot of money. The Maple Leafs are the golden goose. But eventually, you upset enough customers, they're not going to want to spend money with you. Will the Leafs ever not make money? No, probably not. They're the golden goose. They're always going to get money, but they will get less, and that matters to companies like this, especially when they have other teams under their umbrella who don't make money, and shareholders who will always take more money instead of less. Now, to me, the star of this press conference was Brad Treliving, and he said a lot of great things. Very important injury updates. Auston Matthews became really sick after Game 2. We knew that. Suffered a hit in Game 4. We knew that. That presented head injury issues. We did not know that. I always thought it was ridiculous that people thought Auston Matthews, who was playing well, would sit out 2 elimination games because he had a tummy ache. And people stuck to that theory even after Matthews played in Game 7, looking like death warmed up, and assisted on the team's only goal of the game. Now, they also said that he was cleared medically the afternoon of Game 7. I'll take your word for it, but that is the most hockey clearance ever. William Nylander, severe migraines. We knew that. Joseph Woll, sprained back. I don't think that was out there. I mean, we knew he was injured, and that's why he didn't play in Game 7. There was a lot of torque to that torso, trying to make a save at the end of Game 6. A meaningless goal. It's just a heartbreaker. Sprained back, I mean, he didn't break anything. Doesn't sound like he tore anything. That's good. Hopefully it doesn't interrupt his off-season training too much. But another focus that Brad Treliving ended up talking about is this going to be a consistent issue with this player? Joseph Woll, in the minors and now with the Leafs, has gotten hurt a lot. Bobby McMahon, MCL sprain. We knew he was injured. I don't know that we knew it was MCL. And Connor Dewar, I had not heard he was injured at all, had shoulder surgery yesterday. Apparently he should be ready for training camp. That's actually kind of a fascinating one because I've wondered what Connor Dewar's position is with the Leafs going forward. A lot of Leaf fans, I worry that a lot of Leaf fans are going to make the same mistake with Connor Dewar that they made with Sam Lafferty. Sam Lafferty was a guy who joined the Leafs mid-season last year, and he was meh. He wasn't all that great, despite having a pretty good season where he scored a decent amount of goals as a bottom 6 guy on a pretty bad team. Connor Dewar joins the Leafs at the deadline mid-season, right? After having a pretty decent goal-scoring season on a not very good team. So when the cap crunch came at training camp, the Leafs went, and they sent Lafferty to the Canucks for a 5th-round pick. Connor Dewar, bit of a different situation because he's a restricted free agent, still pretty young. He was 24 when they got him, and he needs a new contract. I liked his play enough that I'm convinced he's going to be a player for this team. I have no idea what kind of contract he gets, especially knowing that his offseason is going to be interrupted. I guess the hope with all these players is these aren't long-term issues. There is one Brad Treliving quote that I wanted to talk about because I think some people took the wrong lesson from it.
We've got to find a way to do the hard, unsexy things longer, and those things don't require skill. Right? There's some things in these in this sport and in our games, especially at this time of year, that are not related to skill, but they help you win.
I don't think that was Treliving necessarily saying the Leafs need to sacrifice skill so that they can be tougher. That's how a lot of people interpreted that. I don't think that's what he meant at all. The theme of this press conference was this team doesn't play playoff hockey properly. They have assembled a really, really good, really, really skilled regular season team that can shoot the lights out when defense is a little looser and teams don't have you scouted as well. What I think he means by doing the hard things or the unsexy things a little bit better is things like going to the net, like what Zach Hyman does. Go to the net and collect rebounds. How many rebound goals did the Leafs have in this series? How many goals in close did the Leafs have during this series? And did Matthew Nyes have half of them or more than half of them? Hey, forget the type of goals. How many goals do they have? I think what Brad is saying here is we need to have a team that works harder, that does the things that are more difficult to do, not necessarily sacrificing skill. Like, you look at the OT winner that Artemi Panarin scored the other night, for example. Like, that is an extremely skilled goal, but doing the hardworking goal scorer things. Just fighting for position in front, and he directed a puck with such finesse. I don't think anybody could watch the early parts of the second round of any of the 4 series remaining, the 8 teams remaining, and think that the lesson to be gleaned here is, oh, the Leafs need less skill. The Leafs got way tougher. They were probably the meaner team out of them and Boston, and it found them in the same position. Because it wasn't necessarily, they didn't do the tough things. They didn't do the hardworking, ugly things that you need to do to win playoff games. As for the goaltending, without saying with their whole chest, they're getting rid of basically everyone except Joseph Woll. They said they're basically getting rid of everyone. I don't think Samsonov's coming back.
As far as our goaltending, Joe, I've got faith in Joe. Now, like everybody else, there's questions. There's questions that, why the biggest question with Joe is he's gotten injured a lot. We have to dig into that. Is that sometimes that happens? Sometimes bad luck happens. Is there a training issue that we have to deal with? Do we need to change something in his off-ice routine? All those things is what we have to dig into. I believe in Joe as a goaltender. We have to support Joe.
So here's what that says to me. They're going to yard sale the Leafs' current goaltending. They're going to change everything. Sammy's not going to be back. I don't know about Martin Jones, maybe. They have some young guys coming up. But what this says to me is for everyone who thought Joseph Woll was just going to be magically anointed the Leafs' number 1 goalie position, no. They have faith in Joseph Woll as a goaltender. They have faith in Joseph Woll as a performer. They obviously don't have faith in Joseph Woll's ability to stay healthy. And at minimum, they're going to go out, if they were smart, they would go out and at least get a goalie to tandem with Joseph Woll next season, a goalie who can play at least 40 games. And they'll probably want to go out and get a pretty dependable third goalie, a veteran third goalie, a Martin Jones type, unless you have full faith that Dennis Hildeby can step in and play games for you next season. Now, it's funny. Tandem goalie, can play at least 40 games. That does sound a lot like Ilya Samsonov. No. I think they're done there. I think they tried, and good luck to them. Now, there was a little bit of other news from Pierre LeBrun, hearing that the Devils have sought and received permission to speak with Sheldon Keefe. Now, Keefe obviously had that really nice send-off video, super classy with Leafs Nation. I do think he is going to enjoy his time off. He's a good coach. Brad Treliving went out of his way to talk about how good of a coach Sheldon Keefe is, to the point where I wanted to be like, all right, Brad, like if you say it again, people are going to think you made a stupid decision. Sheldon Keefe is a good coach. I think it was time for a different voice to come into the Leafs room. But it is sort of funny to me that Sheldon Keefe is going to be named the head coach of a team with a really young core, some really young stars, and they're accused of not scoring enough goals for the amount of skill that they have and being too soft. I don't think the reason that the Leafs played soft in years past is because of Sheldon Keefe. And I actually think stylistically, man, I think that's a really good matchup. Everyone thinks him in Pittsburgh is a match made in heaven because of Kyle Dubas. I do not necessarily think that is what's going to happen here. I know you have the opportunity to coach Sidney Crosby, and that is really appealing. Pittsburgh is not heading in the right direction right now. New Jersey, despite the fact that they had a pretty off season, would anyone be surprised if they made the playoffs next year? No. I think that's a really good fit. There are also rumors swirling that the Leafs are going to be talking to Craig Berube, or maybe they already have. The last thing I'll say is that makes a lot of sense. He's a hard-nosed coach, a fired-up, no-nonsense coach, not afraid to call out his players. And I feel like that's relevant because that was a huge change in Sheldon Keefe. Anytime Sheldon Keefe has called out players before this season, he's walked it back to at least some degree, if not entirely. This year, he was calling guys out left and right because playtime was over. He had obvious carte blanche from his general manager to say whatever he wanted. To put it as eloquently as I possibly can, the Leafs are going to be looking for a coach to be on his players like poop on Velcro. And Craig, along with a few others out there, is one of those guys. So, what did you think of that press conference, and what do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comment box down below, but for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. One day I will get my full voice back.